Ladies, let's be real. You've been talking to a man, everything seems to be going well, the conversations are flowing, and just when you start thinking, this might actually go somewhere, boom, he disappears. No explanation, no warning, just vanish like a ghost in the night. And I know what you're thinking. Did I do something wrong? Was he just playing me? Was it another woman? Listen, I need you to understand something when a man ghosts you, it's not always about you. It's about him, his mindset, his issues, his fears. And today, I'm going to break down 7 common reasons why men ghost women so that you can recognize the signs, stop taking it personally, and move forward with clarity. Some men entertain women they're not truly serious about, and when things start feeling too real, they disappear. It's not always because you did something wrong or because you weren't enough. Sometimes he was never that into you in the first place. In the beginning, he may have been curious, attracted to you, or even enjoyed the attention you gave him. He might have liked the idea of having you around, but deep down, he never saw you as someone he wanted to build something meaningful with. Maybe he was bored, lonely, or just looking for a distraction. And when the excitement wore off, he faded away without a second thought. Men who do this often don't want to admit they were never fully invested. Instead of being honest from the start, they go along with the flow. They enjoy the good moments, the conversations, the connection, but they never intended to stay. This is why some men are incredibly engaged one moment and distant the next. It's not that they suddenly lost interest, it's that their level of interest was never as deep as you thought. Another thing to consider is that some men operate on convenience rather than commitment. If a man is keeping you around simply because it's easy or because you're fulfilling a need at that moment, he will leave the second he no longer feels like he needs you. If he was never truly invested, it's effortless for him to walk away because there were never any real emotions holding him there in the first place. This is why it's so important to pay attention to a man's actions rather than his words. A man who is genuinely into you will be consistent. He won't just reach out when it's convenient, and he won't make you feel like you have to guess where you stand. If a man is showing signs of inconsistency, early on hot one day, cold the next, engaged at first, and then suddenly distances often because his heart was never fully in it, it's not about blaming yourself or wondering what you could have done differently. It's about recognizing the signs early and understanding that when a man ghosts you, it's often because he never truly saw you as someone he wanted long term. Some men ghost not because they don't like you, but because they are emotionally unavailable. They may enjoy your company, appreciate your energy, and even feel a connection, but when it comes to truly opening up and being vulnerable, they shut down. It's not about you lacking anything. It's about them not being in a place where they can give or receive love in a healthy way. Emotional unavailability can come from many things. Maybe he just got out of a relationship and isn't ready to invest in someone new. Maybe he's been hurt in the past and never fully healed from it. Maybe he grew up in an environment where expressing emotions was never encouraged, so he learned to avoid deep connections altogether. Some men aren't even aware that they're emotionally unavailable. They just know that when things start to get serious, they feel the urge to pull away. In the beginning, he might be present and engaged because everything is light and fun. There are no real expectations, and he can enjoy the connection without pressure. But the moment he senses that you're looking for something deeper, he panics. He doesn't know how to handle emotional intimacy, so instead of having a conversation, he disappears. Ghosting for him is an escape from dealing with emotions he hasn't learned to process. This is why you may notice a pattern with certain men hot and cold behavior, inconsistency, or shutting down when discussions about feelings or the future come up. It's not necessarily that he doesn't care about you, but he doesn't have the emotional tools to handle a real connection. He might have even convinced himself that he wanted something serious, but when faced with the reality of commitment, he realized he wasn't ready. Men who are emotionally unavailable will often leave without closure because they don't know how to articulate what they're feeling. Instead of admitting that they are struggling internally, they choose silence. They may even pop back up later when they feel lonely, only to disappear again when things start to feel too real. If you find yourself constantly questioning where you stand, feeling like you have to chase clarity, or dealing with a man who avoids deep conversations, there's a good chance he was never emotionally available to begin with. Some men come into your life with one goal in mind. They will say all the right things, do all the right things, and make you believe they're serious until they get what they wanted. In many cases, this could be physical intimacy, validation, or even just the comfort of having someone around. But once that need is fulfilled, their motivation to stay disappears, and so do they. This is why some men start off so strong. They pursue you aggressively, shower you with compliments, and make grand promises about the future. They act like they're all in, and it feels like they're genuinely invested. But the truth is, they were only in it for what they could gain in the moment. The moment they get what they were after, their energy shifts. They stop texting as much, the calls become less frequent, and eventually they disappear altogether. It's not always about physical intimacy either. Some men use women for emotional support. They might be going through a tough time, feeling lonely, or lacking confidence, and they lean on you to fill that void. They love the way you make them feel, the way you encourage them, and the way you pour into them. But once they start feeling better or no longer need that emotional boost, they disappear without explanation. For some, it's about ego. They enjoy the chase, the thrill of knowing they can win you over. They put in effort not because they truly want something real, but because they want to prove to themselves that they can have you. The moment they feel like they've won, the excitement fades and they move on. This is why it's so important to pay attention to consistency. A man who is genuinely interested in you will continue to pursue you after he gets what he wants. His energy won't suddenly change, and he won't disappear once the excitement wears off. If a man ghosts after getting what he was after, it means he was never truly invested in the first place. He was only there for the temporary benefit, not for the long-term connection. Many women find themselves wondering what went wrong, replaying moments in their head, trying to figure out if they did something to push him away. But the truth is, once he got what he wanted, he had no reason to stay. Some men ghost because they feel pressured. In the beginning, things may feel light and easy, but the moment they sense expectations rising, they start to pull away. It's not always that they don't like you, but they may not be ready for the level of commitment they feel you want. Instead of being honest about where they stand, they disappear to avoid the conversation altogether. Pressure can come in many forms. Maybe you start talking about the future, where the relationship is going, what you're looking for, what you need from him. Maybe you start expecting more consistency, more communication, more effort, more emotional investment. To a man who isn't ready for that, it can feel overwhelming. Instead of stepping up or admitting that he's not on the same page, he chooses the easiest way out, ghosting. Some men don't even realize they have commitment issues until they're faced with the possibility of something real. At first, they enjoy the attention and the excitement of getting to know someone new. But as soon as they feel like things are getting serious, they start to panic. Commitment requires effort, responsibility, and vulnerability, and not every man is willing or ready to give that. Rather than confront his own fears, he avoids the situation entirely. For some, the pressure isn't just about commitment, it's about expectations. If he feels like he can't live up to what you want, he may choose to leave without explanation. Maybe he knows you're looking for something serious, and deep down he realizes he's not in a place to offer that. Maybe he feels like you have high standards, and instead of admitting that he's not ready to meet them, he walks away. This is why ghosting often happens right when things seem to be progressing. One moment, everything is fine, and the next, he's distant or completely gone. It's not that something necessarily happened, it's that he reached his limit of what he could handle emotionally. Some men don't know how to communicate their fears or limitations, so they avoid them altogether. They would rather disappear than admit they can't give you what you want. It's not about you being too much or doing something wrong, it's about him not being mature enough to have an honest conversation about where he stands. Some men ghost because they were never just talking to you in the first place. They may have been entertaining multiple women, weighing their options, or simply keeping you around as a backup plan. In the early stages, it may have seemed like you had his full attention, was calling, texting, making plans, and acting like he was genuinely interested. But as soon as he decided to focus on someone else, he disappeared without explanation. This happens because some men like to keep their options open. They may not be ready to commit, so they talk to multiple women at once, seeing who fits best into their life. They enjoy the thrill of variety, the excitement of new connections, and the ability to choose without fully investing in any one person. But when they finally make a decision, whether it's someone else they're more drawn to or simply a desire to be single again, they cut ties with the others without warning. For some, ghosting is a way to avoid the discomfort of admitting the truth. Instead of saying, I've decided to pursue someone else, or I don't see this going anywhere, they take the easy way out. They vanish, hoping you'll eventually get the message without them having to explain themselves. It's a selfish move, but for them, it's easier than having an honest conversation. In some cases, a man may ghost temporarily, only to return later when things don't work out with the person he chose. You might notice that after weeks or months of silence, he suddenly reappears in your messages as if nothing happened. This usually means that the option he pursued didn't work out, and now he's trying to pick up where he left off with you. It's a sign that you were never his priority, just a convenient option. There are also men who ghost when they're keeping multiple women on standby, engaging in a cycle of disappearing and reappearing when it suits them. They rotate between connections, giving attention when it's convenient and withdrawing when they're distracted by someone else. This pattern creates confusion and leaves women feeling like they did something wrong when in reality, they were never the only person in the picture to begin with. If a man disappears without reason and then comes back as if nothing happened, it's a strong indicator that he was entertaining other options all along. Some men ghost because they are afraid of conflict. They don't know how to handle uncomfortable conversations, so instead of facing them, they choose to disappear. For them, ghosting feels easier than explaining why they no longer want to pursue the relationship. It's not that they don't have thoughts or feelings about it, it's that they lack the emotional maturity to express them. This often happens when a man knows that his decision to leave will hurt or disappoint you. Maybe he realized he's not as interested as he thought. Maybe he changed his mind about what he wants, or maybe he just isn't in the right space for a relationship. Instead of sitting down and having an honest discussion, he avoids it altogether. He convinces himself that ghosting is better than dealing with the potential reaction, whether that's anger, sadness, or disappointment. Some men also ghost because they don't like confrontation. They fear being questioned or held accountable for their actions. If they tell you the truth, they might have to deal with your emotions, and they aren't equipped to handle that. They don't want to feel guilty, they don't want to explain themselves, and they don't want to see the consequences of their choice. So they leave in silence, hoping that you'll just move on without pressing for answers. There are also cases where men ghost because they don't have a real reason. They just feel like leaving and don't want to justify it. Maybe they lost interest, maybe they got distracted by someone else, or maybe they just don't feel like continuing the connection. Instead of offering a clear explanation, they choose the path of least resistance. They assume that disappearing will save them from an awkward discussion, not realizing or not caring how hurtful and confusing it is for the person on the other side. For some, ghosting is a pattern. They've done it before and they'll do it again. If they've never been forced to confront the emotional damage they cause, they don't see a reason to change. They might even believe that avoiding the conversation is doing you a favor, thinking that letting you down gently means saying nothing at all. But in reality, their silence speaks volumes. It shows that rather than handling relationships with respect and honesty, they choose avoidance as an easy way out. Some men ghost because they know deep down that you're not the one for them. They may have enjoyed your company, liked spending time with you, and even felt some level of attraction, but when it comes to seeing a real future, they just don't feel that deep connection. Instead of being upfront about it, they slowly withdraw or disappear completely, leaving you confused and questioning what went wrong. This often happens because many men struggle with honesty when it comes to feelings. Telling someone, I don't see this going anywhere, or I don't feel that deeper connection requires maturity and emotional intelligence. Rather than risk hurting your feelings or dealing with an emotional conversation, they choose the easiest option, silent. For them, ghosting feels like a way to avoid an awkward discussion, even though it leaves you without closure. Sometimes a man realizes early on that you're not the one, but he keeps you around for the benefits of companionship, attention, or convenience. He may have had doubts from the start, but as long as things were fun and easy, he continued the connection. However, once he reaches the point where he knows for certain that this isn't a long-term match, he disappears. It's not that something specific happened, it's just that he never truly saw you as someone he wanted to build a future with. In some cases, a man may compare his feelings for you to what he has felt for someone else in the past, or what he believes he should feel when he meets the right person. If that deeper spark isn't there, he knows it's only a matter of time before he pulls away. Instead of communicating this, he takes the cowardly route and ghosts, hoping you'll just move on without needing an explanation. There are also men who ghost because they don't want to be the bad guy. They know that if they tell you directly that they don't see a future, it might lead to a tough conversation, tears, or even anger. To avoid feeling like the villain, they remove themselves from the situation altogether. They convince themselves that fading away is better than saying outright that they don't see you as their person. But in reality, their silence causes more confusion and pain than an honest conversation ever would. When a man ghosts you, it's not a reflection of your worth, it's a reflection of his inability to communicate, commit, or be emotionally mature. So don't waste time chasing clarity from a man who was too weak to give it to you in the first place. Let him go. Move forward. And trust that the right man, the one who truly sees and values you, will never disappear without a word. Because a man who truly wants you will always make sure you know it.